Hello and welcome back to the Higher Paradigm YouTube channel and podcast. I am your host, Laura. Today's episode is for those of us who are navigating deep healing work and just really meeting parts of ourselves that are stuck in the past, are stuck in our wounding. And if that sounds interesting to you or curious to you, I invite you to stay around. I'm sort of going to channel, but more or less share what's coming up for me in regards to this healing journey that I am on. So I have been navigating the depths of my own healing for the last 5 years. And every layer that I peel back, it empowers me. It allows me to step further into more of who I actually am, my truth, the ability to speak clearly with love, the ability to perceive my reality through the lens of love and compassion and honesty, just noticing more and more how others are operating and what it appears to be to me. And also getting really depthfully clear on the subconscious wounding and the subconscious beliefs that are not only held within my body and are coming to the surface, but also when I work with other women, the subconscious wounding and beliefs that are held within their body based off of the information that they're giving to me. And right now, at this particular moment, I have been in the trenches for about a month. And it makes a lot of sense because if you are diving into healing work, and I hope that this gives you some sort of peace and comfort knowing this, that the more you step in to who you actually are, and the more that you take steps out of your comfort zone, or you take the leap of faith, or you begin to implement things that creatively or life choices or whatever it is, you start to take those leaps, you start to take the plunge, so to speak, and you don't know where you're going. You don't know what to expect. And that is really scary for our subconscious, because our subconscious and those parts of us that have been wounded only know what happens when we trust others, or we trust in the process, or we enjoy something. If we have been living our lives afraid of joy fully, it likely has to do with a point in your life that you really fully were living in joy for even a brief moment, and it was taken from you in some way. So now, as an adult, there's a fear of fully allowing in the joy. So this is actually something in particular that I am working through. I am unearthing a lot. I think this is one of the bigger trenches I've been in, which makes a lot of sense because for the last 5 years, I have been layer by layer, peeling back. And I had to get to this place within myself to create safety and just have the discernment and the ability to recognize this is a story versus, oh my gosh, this is actually true for me right now. A lot of the stories are fear-based. A lot of the stories that come up when we are up-leveling or taking those leaps of faith in our lives, there's parts of us that are terrified of what you're about to do. And so this morning, I was sharing with my husband what came through the other day when I was in my hour-long somatic breath work, and where I was taken back to. I was taken back to a time between the age of 14 and 16 and beyond. But 14 and 16, I feel like that's when it was really imprinted into me that I am a reject, that I am literally rejected by everybody and everything in my life. So for me, it was I endured an assault. My mother rejected that it happened because she didn't want to deal with it. And she didn't want my father to find out that this is something that happened. And this happened before we moved up to where we are, where I've been living for the last, 25 years in Western New York. And so before we moved, I had endured this assault. My mother did not support me or protect me. And she rejected my trauma. She rejected what I went through. And I wasn't allowed to talk about it. There was a lot of gaslighting and brainwashing on her part to keep me quiet so that my father never found out. And then when I started school up here, I tried out for the field hockey team. I didn't get selected, and I was playing field hockey for 2 years prior to moving up here. I had a lot of experience in performing arts, and I tried out for the exact same musical, actually, that I was selected for down in New Jersey as a middle schooler for the high school. Ironically, they had the exact same musical the year that I moved up here. And I tried out and I didn't even get in the chorus. And now looking back, it's like this, obviously, it's just crazy because I was a performer. I was a dancer. I was a singer. This was where I felt most myself in my self-expression. And I didn't get selected even for the chorus. I was 14, 15 years old, and that was devastating. My insecurities were at an all-time low because of what had happened to me prior to moving, and then my mother rejecting and abandoning me. And now here I am trying to get my life back on track and keep pursuing the things that I love so much. And oh my gosh, I was being rejected. And before I moved, I found myself in a really comfortable, accepted place, not at home, but definitely within my social circle. And that took a lot of work because we moved around a couple of times when I was a child. So I had only lived in the area that I lived in before I moved up to Western New York for 3 years. And those were 2.5 of them were the best years of my childhood, but they had nothing to do with what was going on at home because home was tumultuous. It was unpredictable. It was dark and lonely. And there was just so much toxicity, but I found my solace and my joy with my friends and in the social circle that I had, but also in dance, performing arts, on the field hockey team. I was happy. When we first moved to that place, I was severely bullied by a group of girls. And it wasn't until I stood up for myself and finally was willing to basically fight this girl did things start to change. And once I did stand up for myself, everything changed. My point is, I was figuring things out, who I was, what I loved, how I fit into a group of friends. And I have letters that I kept in a box from childhood. And I read them a few years ago, just saying all these amazing things about who I was at that time and what I brought to relationships. So when I moved, that was utterly destroying. and horrible and traumatizing, along with what I had been through before we moved. And then I was trying to get my life back by joining the things that made me happy, and I was being rejected. And my friendships were rejecting me too. I was trying to fit into this group of friends when I moved up here that, yeah, it just was toxic. It just was toxic relationships, but I was so needy for love and something to make me feel at home and happy and a part of something, that I just clung on to this group of girls, even when they treated me like shit. So I'm sharing all of this just to give an example of where I'm going with this conversation. Circling back, I was talking to my husband this morning about all of this. This was all coming up. Like, I was being reminded of all this rejection happening all at once. I didn't remember all of this. I knew that rejection over the last couple weeks, I knew that rejection was rearing its ugly head. It was coming up. I was feeling it. There were things that needed to be acknowledged. But it wasn't until this breath work that I did the other day that I was able to get really clear on just the severity of rejection that I was enduring as a 14 to 16 and beyond year old. I would say 14 to like 20 when I met my girlfriend. She was a really good friend and she loved me for who I was at that time. And she was, yeah, we were like sisters. But that was like when I was 19 or 20. So anyway, it imprinted in me that I am not lovable. I am not accepted. I am lonely. I am alone. I'm useless and worthless. That is how I felt. And when you go into a breath work and you revisit all of these parts of you and you hold the memories of where you were at during that time the most, which was my bedroom. That was my safe haven. And that was the place where I would often find myself in, isolated, lonely, and just able to shut out the world that seemed like they didn't want anything to do with me. And it was really hard. And to revisit that now as an adult, 39-year-old woman, it's devastating. Like, when you're in it, you know that this is hard. Oh my gosh. I knew it was hard. It felt so freaking hard. But when you reflect back on it as a grown woman who has been doing healing work and really, really becoming more and more self-aware and just understanding the gravity of these situations that wound us, that cause us so much pain and keep rearing its ugly head or keep being triggered in certain situations when we're up leveling and going into those new experiences, as I was saying. Oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. Like, for one person to have to go through some of these things all at once, I totally understand that girl inside of me that's so afraid of being rejected. Even though on the surface, as a 39-year-old woman, and with all the work that I've done, I know that I love myself. I don't need to worry about being rejected. I do value this idea of rejection is redirection. And I do see that even going into these memories and going into those parts of me where this was happening for a reason. But here's where I'm going with all of this is, even going back into those memories, what was coming up was, while I was moving through all of this and feeling all my feelings, and even this morning as I'm sharing it with my husband, I am asking myself, what the hell was the point of all of this? And why would I need to go through that? Why would I need to go through that? And then I'm thinking about the law of attraction, and how can a child attract toxicity, attract trauma, attract abuse, attract pain, attract wounding, attract the wrong people. How can we put that on a child? Right. And what was coming through, which is what prompted me to share this episode, is this is a part of the soul's contract, all of it. I know that this might sound out there, but it makes sense to me because for what reason, other than the soul needing to undergo certain experiences, the soul on a journey to, okay, I need to go through all of this and then be able to overcome it. To me, that actually makes a lot of sense when we think about some of the crazy things that we have been through. I'm not talking about situations we've put ourselves in. Of course, those offer lessons and wisdom too, and things to work through, whether it be guilt or shame or disgust for ourselves or forgiveness, right? I'm talking about the situations we don't put ourselves in necessarily that are, if I do this, then this negative thing is going to happen. Like I didn't put myself in to audition for that musical so that I could fail, so that I could not get selected. I don't want to say fail, but not get selected. I didn't put myself in like tryouts for the field hockey team so that I could walk away and say, or I didn't go into it knowing like I'm going to try out and I'm not going to be picked and it's going to suck. We're not choosing to have these experiences. We're not choosing our friends so that we can recycle the story of, well, I'm just rejected by my own friends. Why don't they care about me enough? All this stuff. And we certainly don't choose our parents. I have been in meditations where I have envisioned that I am sitting with God as a soul, just a soul, not just a soul, but not in this body is my point. And God and I are talking about now is time to revisit the earth and live another earthly experience as a human. And I envision that the earth is going round and round. I'm sitting with God and I select my parents to be my parents. I select the life. I already know that I'm going to endure trauma, pain, wounding. And it's not just at the hands of my parents. It's at the hands of my family. It's at the hands of experiences. And I am here for it because there is something, and I haven't fully uncovered this yet in my own channeling, in my own meditation, but there are things that my soul absolutely needs to learn. And I also connect this back to previous lives, that there were things that were unfinished from previous lives that I had endured, that I didn't get to overcome, that I didn't get to heal for whatever reason, that I didn't get to stand as an empowered person and operate from that place, that I didn't get to actually live a life of joy. And the whole point of this life is for me to, essentially revisit in a way trauma and wounding and pain that I have endured in previous lives, but for the purpose in this life of finding my way out of it. I'm feeling myself getting emotional, finding my way through it, doing all of the healing and bringing the wisdom from not only what I've experienced in this life, but also the lives before. And finally, getting to remember or experience joy fully. And, this whole life, I also recognize is not just about me and my past lives. It's about, I chose this family I chose this path to bring this lineage on a new timeline. And with that means that my children must have chosen to be my children and their soul contracts and everything. But I am supposed to lead the way for them to navigate their childhood, their teenage years, their adolescence, their young adulthood, their whatever, in a way that offers them what it is that they need on their journey, on their soul's journey. And I couldn't give them what they needed, whatever that is. Who the frick knows right now, but I couldn't give them what they need unless I did the work that I came here to do. I came here to endure, but I didn't come here to suffer. And I think that a lot of us get caught up. This is why I'm sharing this, because it's so easy and I get it. And I've been there where you get caught up in suffering and you get caught up in victimhood and martyrdom. And you think there must be just something wrong with me that this shit happens to me, that all of this stuff has happened to me. And now 20 plus years later, it's still affecting my life. It's still coming up. It's still trying to hijack my current experience. It is a lot. Because it is a lot. It is a lot when you're grown. You're a grown ass woman. You're a grown ass man. And you have your 14-year-old self, your 15-year-old self, your 8-year-old self, your 21-year-old self is still coming through to remind you of the pain and the suffering that you endured. And it's hard when you can feel just how dense and how imprinted these stories are of who you are, that you are a reject, that nobody cares about you, that nobody loves you. But you know, as a woman, a grown woman, that these are stories that are not true. You know, and it is like just overwhelming at times when you're working through this stuff. But I do feel that when we remember that this is for a bigger purpose than just being a victim to your experience, there's something larger at play in all of this. I think for me, it really freaking helps, because when I think about me up there with God and saying, this is the family I'm going to choose because this is what I need to be doing. This is the family I need to choose to help heal my own shit. But this is also part of my purpose in this particular life, is to help this family to enter into a new timeline and to bring this lineage into a new way of life, to stop the suffering, to stop the pain, to stop the wounding, to stop the abuse. But as a soul, recognizing I am not just going through this for the lineage. I'm not just going through this for myself. I don't need to endure and overcome, and that's it. It is to bring something of big, big value and contribution into this world. It is to make an impact, show others, help others, guide others to what is possible, and be willing to love those parts of myself, show them what is possible when we don't live in that bedroom anymore, when we don't continue to stay in that safe place that we created for ourselves in order to just get through it, in order to survive when we were going through trauma or pain or horrible things or whatever it is. Obviously, everybody's life experience is different, and there's different levels of trauma and pain and wounding. But if you find yourself in this place that I have been in, where you're like, oh my gosh, but why did I have to go through all of that? And why couldn't I have just had one person on my side to guide me? I want to also share this. It is you now who guides you. then through that turmoil. It is God at play with you, through you. This is getting rid of time and space. This is getting rid of linear time. What I envision is in my meditations, well, the other day in the somatic breath work I was doing, me as my teenage self in that bedroom, laying on my bed, and me now snuggling her, spooning her, and whispering in her ear that this will not be this way forever. And you will overcome and you will have a better life and just keep going. It's interesting. I've had these visions of this about when I was suffering in addiction and I was really, really drunk and listening to an album. And when I was in that state, this was, I don't know, almost, oh my gosh, probably 10 years ago. I can't believe that. That's crazy. About 10 years ago, when this happened, when I was in a stupor and I could feel that there was me, future Laura, with me in that time, whispering, and I couldn't hear her like audibly, but I could sense that she was saying it's going to be okay. And that was me. That was me now, or a couple of years ago when I had this recollection as I was listening to that same album, laying in the same spot and remembering where I was to how far I had come. I just, oh my gosh, I was like, holy shit, it was me that was there with her, foregoing all time and space, energetically, higher self, we could call it. My higher self was there telling this poor girl suffering an addiction who was in a drunken stupor, you're going to get through this. It's going to be okay. Like, I mean, I'm getting emotional again. It's amazing. And these are, wow, like just to know that, or to think of it that way, realize like when you're going through some heavy shit, when you're not in the best place in your life, when you hear that voice, yes, it's God, but it's also God working through you. I don't believe that God works alone. I think we're co-creating. We're co-creating with the universe. We're co-creating with God. But I think co-creating also means when God is working through even our higher self or a future version of us to connect with that past version of us to guide her, because maybe that version doesn't want to listen to God, right? Because that woman, I shouldn't say girl, I was a grown ass woman. 10 years ago, I was 29 years old. So I was a grown woman. But that grown woman did not want to hear from God. That woman was angry with God. So God is going to work through these channels that we are willing to listen to. There's always going to be a way that God connects with us, whether or not we want to believe it. Just going back to that, sitting with God as a soul, and God knows what our journey is. And God is witnessing what we're going through. And we're really at an all-time low. But we are angry and we are so disconnected from God itself, herself, himself, whatever it is that you believe. God will find a way to help us get through those moments and guide us out if we're willing to listen. I wasn't always willing to listen, and I didn't always listen. I didn't know what I was going to come on here and say. I just knew that there was something that needed to come through and be shared because of where I'm at right now and what I'm going through in these trenches. And I've been through this time and time again now. And a part of me is like, when is this going to be done? But then a bigger part of me is like, I'm so here for this because what's on the other side, what happens in the trench and then walk out of the trench is pure magic, is pure abundance, is pure love. And I'm here for that. Part of this journey for me, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, is accessing more joy and being okay and feeling safe and recognizing I am deserving of all the joy in the world. As I said, I felt from birth till probably 23 years old, the best time of my life was those 2.5 years in between the ages of 12 and 14. And I experienced more joy and more acceptance for myself and by my peers than I ever had. And then it felt like it was ripped away from me when I went through the assault, and then we moved, and then everything that spiraled downward thereafter. And I feel like those glimmers, these experiences of joy, pure joy, and we know, oh my gosh, I love my life right now. I feel like we have these experiences to serve as reminders of what we can access when we are going through really hard times. So instead of perceiving it as every time I experience joy, it's ripped away from me, what if we experience it as, oh, I remember what this feels like, and this is accessible to me, and this is available to me, and I am deserving of it. And I'm gonna relish in this instead of fighting it and feeling like, oh gosh, if I fully feel this joy, it's gonna go away. Whenever that has happened, you are much wiser. You have learned, you have the experience. It has guided you forward. The other thing about this, and I'll end it with this, everything is cyclical, and there will be moments of joy, pockets of joy. And then there will be pockets of challenges and grief and anger and pain and all of those things. But that does not necessarily mean that you don't love your life, right? We can love our lives and still go through the trenches. We can love our lives going through the trenches because we know that this is all part of a bigger plan, and that this is serving us, and that this is happening for us and for our highest good, and that God is walking with us all along the way. God is working through us as we go through these trenches. God is working through us when we go through the joy too. And just feeling and remembering to be grateful even when things are really, really effing hard. It is hard. It is hard, but we are all the better when we just find gratitude even in those trenches, in the lessons that we learn through those trenches about ourselves and about the world and where we fit into it. So, okay, that is all I have to say about that. That was basically just a riff in a storytelling. And I hope that this episode just touches someone that needs to hear this, because I know, obviously, I'm getting emotional because I am going through a process, but I just know how challenging it can be to be in that trench and to be in those places and to revisit those old wounds and to recognize that they're still playing out in your current reality and you don't know what to freaking do. I know how that feels. I just hope this reaches you and that you can, in some way, if not already, just meet those parts of you with love, compassion, your breath, your energy, and God, and let it all guide you back into wholeness, because trust me, it is there and you're going through this for your highest and best. And there is a grander purpose at play. I would love, of course, to hear from you in the comments section. And if you want to keep a conversation going about this particular topic or share a story with me, I would love to connect with you and build a community around having open conversations like this. So definitely comment below. As I always say in my episodes at the end here, subscribe on my YouTube channel, share this with somebody who needs to hear it. Follow me if you're listening in on Spotify or Apple. And if you want to find me on social and connect with me there, I am on Instagram at Sacred Healing with _Laura. And I'm on Facebook at Sacred Healing with Laura, or Laura Batosniak is my private page. And if you are interested in diving into healing work and reclaiming more of your wholeness with some support and a space holder who has done the work too and gone into a lot of depths, I am here for you. I will leave the link to my website in the show notes in the description of this episode below. And feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you so much for being here and listening in. I am so grateful for you. I am so grateful to be in this space and doing this. Much love and many blessings. And I will see you again soon.